I thought I'd talk about Missouri Amendment 3, which is the one about abortion. So, go for the easy stuff, huh? The reason I'm talking about it is, in fact, it's because there is a lot of bad language in this amendment. And I want to break it down for you so you can make a better decision on it. Because the people who drafted this were either really bad at writing or very deceptive. Now, you're all automatically going to look at me and say, well, a lot depends on how you stand on things, on whether you're going to interpret this honestly. Well, let me tell you that I'm neither a Republican or a Democrat, and my stance is, at least, very complicated. Uh, I know there's a lot of people on the pro-choice, or excuse me, pro-life side that uh, would compare slavery and abortion arguments as being very similar, and I agree with that. uh, which brings me to a lot of interesting downrange ideas on that. I agree that the decision should be made at the state level. Therefore, I disagree with the idea of a national ban. I agree with the current Missouri constitutional take on this from a moral viewpoint. However, I disagree with it on a law standpoint because it fails common law sensibilities in terms of societal drift. In short, although I mostly agree with the outcome, I disagree with the timing and implementation. I think they committed a gross overreach in terms of the will of the people. Now, to confuse you just a little bit more, if any other state had adopted the same law or constitutional viewpoint, I'd be happy to watch it play out. However, being it in the state that I'm in, I'm not as much in the mood to watch this play out the way it was. So, if for some reason you're really interested in how I arrive at these decisions, I could do that in another video. Comment below. Now, if your current viewpoint is that the situation as it is now, with essentially abortion being nearly banned, you pretty much ignore this video. It isn't for you. You already probably made up your mind that you're voting no on this. However, if you don't like the current constitutional stand, I want to point out issues with this amendment that actually it's in many ways a Trojan horse. It's not what it appears to be. So at points in here, I need to actually talk about the precise text that's in the amendment. Now, there's points where I am excerpting things out a little bit. It's only for clarity. I'm not changing the meaning at all. If you have any doubt in that, the full text exists online all over the place. Read it yourself if you don't think the way I'm presenting it is the way it's actually written. I have not changed the writing at all. They're cut and paste directly out of the amendment language itself. So, this part gets into shall not deny or infringe upon a person's fundamental right to reproductive freedom, which is the right to make and carry out decisions about all matters relating to reproductive health care, including but not limited to prenatal care, childbirth, postpartum care, birth control, abortion care, miscarriage care, and respectful birthing conditions. So, what are the problems with this? Well, in fact, this actually sets up that abortion can occur anywhere from conception to the end of the third trimester. Now, there's a caveat that's added here that makes it sound like that's not what they're doing, but they've actually created massive loopholes that makes the caveat meaningless. And I'll return to that in a moment, but for the moment, accept the idea that nothing here says there's any point where an abortion can't occur. It's pretty much saying everything's out in the open. Now, the other thing this does is this will remove all parental rights in regards to reproductive health for their children. Note that there is no age mentioned. It's not about adults, it's about persons. I don't believe this is accidental. I believe it's very intentional. So this means nobody, the state could not pass a law saying that even a parent could be informed about a child's abortion. It's basically entirely up to the child to do it because they are a person. And having the parent involved in the decision making process would require a law that would infringe upon their fundamental right. Okay. Since there are no age limits, no parental input would be allowed at all. Child may get any form of reproductive health care without the parent knowing. Now, note that it uses the phrase all matters relating to reproductive health care, including but not limited to. Okay, so that means that anything that has anything to do with reproductive health care, not just the little laundry list they threw down, but anything fits into this concept. Okay, so sterilization would also fit into this. Sterilization is a form of reproductive health care. Um, Either if you're especially if you're specifically doing it for the purpose of not having children. Now, if you talk about transgender treatments, these directly impact the reproductive systems. Typically, they end up sterilizing the person. It's highly arguable that this opens up all forms of transgender medical procedures that impact the reproductive system. That means that uh, if children have been given the right without parental oversight to access to all reproductive health care, this also opens up all transgender care to them as well. Okay, so in this section it says the General Assembly may enact laws that regulate the provision of abortion after fetal viability, provided that no circumstance shall the government deny, interfere with, delay, or otherwise restrict an abortion that in good faith judgment of a treating healthcare professional is needed to protect the life or physical or mental health of the pregnant person. So this is where they're making it sound like by saying viability of the fetus that they have blocked out the second and third trimesters. However, at the exact same time they throw this in there, they mention that healthcare professionals are allowed to essentially negate the viability option at any time for pretty much any reason, including mental health. So if a healthcare professional says, hey, this person's mental health is going to be so adversely affected, we need to perform an abortion. Doesn't matter at what point. At the same time, it would also, uh, yeah, so let's continue. So, what is a healthcare professional? Well, uh, healthcare professionals in Missouri are defined as, by law, physicians, registered nurses, licensed practical nurses, advanced practice registered nurses, physician assistants, dentists, pharmacists, physical therapists, occupational therapists, optometrists, psychiatrists, psychologists, licensed clinical social workers, counselors, therapists, chiropractors. So basically, the way this is written, a counselor or a therapist could okay an abortion at 9 months, minus a day, maybe minus an hour, if they determine that the mental health of the mother will be adversely affected. And you could say, well, I don't think that's probably what they intended. I would argue that, but that's what it says. So even if the writers didn't intend this, someone's going to take it in that direction. All right. So here's another fun part. No person shall be penalized, prosecuted, or otherwise subjected to adverse action based on their actual, potential, perceived, or alleged pregnancy outcomes, including but not limited to miscarriage, stillbirth, or abortion. No, nor shall any person assisting a person in exercising their right to reproductive freedom with that person's consent be penalized, prosecuted, or otherwise subjected to adverse actions for doing so. Now, this is actually a lot scarier than what it sounds. What this does, it immunizes all people involved in the process from both criminal and civil prosecution. So, for instance, let's say a woman dies during an abortion due to gross malpractice. Saying that basically the people who are in attendance, the medical professionals, do something that everyone recognizes as being completely the wrong thing, absolute total negligence. There will be no recourse for the family because anyone performing an abortion, no matter what the outcome is, cannot be prosecuted, cannot be penalized. That eliminates lawful prosecution and civil actions. So if a woman becomes disabled or sterile due to malpractice, she has no recourse. If a medical professional convinces a patient to have a procedure that they later regret, all people involved are immunized from any legal action. Okay? This is not limited to the abortion procedure. This also extends out to anyone assisting, medical professional or not. This language would also immunize mental health professionals from recommending transition to children who later regret and sue. This is happening a lot where people who are known as detransitioners are basically, they were told as 14 to 16-year-olds that they really needed to get surgery and medication that altered them permanently. And when they become young adults and find out they can no longer have children, they want somebody to pay for making a decision for them that was probably a bad one. This would prevent this from happening. Because this is definitely happening in other states, I suspect this is deliberate. I want to provide a synopsis of the issues. So, what this amendment does is it opens up abortion from any point up until birth. It does not block trimesters. The provision about fetal viability is defined and then nullified. Essentially, they say yes, if fetal viability can't be violated unless a healthcare professional deems it to be violated or can be violated. Okay? Remember that a therapist, a counselor, or even a dentist can make a decision that legally supersedes the viability of a fetus. One of the things this amendment does is it does backdoor transgender surgeries and treatments for children. There are no provisions that block minors from getting any kind of reproductive health treatment because they deliberately use the word person than adult or person 18 and older. This nullifies parental rights on all issues regarding reproductive health of their children. And finally, it effectively eliminates malpractice. Any outcome, no matter how bad or severe, no matter how negligent the person is doing the procedure, is protected if a reproductive health care procedure occurred. Now, the problem being is if this gets passed in November, the only way these provisions can be altered is via an additional amendment to the Constitution. Such an amendment would take at the very least 1 year, or like 2 to 4 years. So if this passes in November, we are stuck with all its provisions and the repercussions of it for at least a year, probably more like four. So for you, first you need to decide, okay, is what I'm saying correct? If you doubt it, look at the language, see if you agree. Then you have to ask the next question: are these bad provisions an improvement over what we currently have? Right now, The biggest problem we have is that if you think you need an abortion, you have to go over state lines. Yep, it's inconvenient. Yes, it's expensive, but it's not as deadly as letting children making decisions on reproductive health care or immunizing healthcare professionals from negligence. So I guess that would be my opinion. Do you believe also what is a bigger problem? The fact that women would have to cross state lines to get an abortion, or the fact that these provisions would essentially eliminate malpractice and also expose children to decisions they probably shouldn't be making. So if you make that, you have to weigh that and see which one you think is a bigger problem. Now, the good thing is we could very easily come up with a better amendment to the Constitution that makes abortion provisions more in line with what the citizenry wants. Obviously, what was put in place here a couple years ago was very extreme. Well, this is very extreme in the other direction. Rather than doing the two wrong, make a right decision, I think it would be better if we let this one go by without passing it and come up with a better one that everyone can agree on. All right. Well, tell me what you think in the comments below. If you want me to go over some of the other amendments, let me know and I can do those as well. Uh, please smash the like button. If the YouTube algorithm brought you here and you're not a regular subscriber, please look at my other titles, consider subscribing, and if you know someone who might find this interesting, please share it with them. Thank you for spending time with me this evening. Hope to see you again in a future video.